Hi, I'm Jenna Jasso, an empowerment coach, and you're watching P3 on Rise Above TV.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Rise Above TV, where we are empowering humanity and supporting unity. You're watching P3, the place where we feature individuals who have tapped into their power, passion, and purpose. I'm your host, Janie Terrazas, and today I am very grateful to have the lovely Jenna Jasso. She is a community facilitator, an empowerment coach, and an earth steward. I believe I said all of that correctly. She is an all-around special, sparkly human being. I actually met her through a dear friend of mine at a holistic wellness retreat in Austin. And I know there's like a special name for it, but she'll tell you probably a little bit about it. But this woman really knows how to create safe space for people to be real and share, their story. And so she has a beautiful story. Thank you so much, Jenna, for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored. How
So
exciting.
yeah, for sure. So when it comes to power, passion, and purpose, clearly you are living in that space and have for quite some time. I don't know if you want to share a little bit about how that journey began for you, or if I definitely want people to know a little bit more about what those beautiful words are that describe the work that you do here on this planet. So wherever you would like to start.
Thank you. Yes, I would love to share a little bit about how I got here because I don't believe that I could have come into the life that I have if it wasn't for the trials and different experiences of my younger self. So originally I went to the University of Texas. That's what brought me to Austin. That was in 2002. And I graduated from University of Texas with a mechanical engineering degree. And so I also took an engineering job for about a year. But it only took me a couple of months to kind of feel that I had gone down a path that wasn't really going to me in the way that I had anticipated. It was sort of me following a path that was more so impressed upon me, or else, the idea of it and what it would be like was not aligning with the reality. And it was actually probably one of the biggest mm, breaking moments, like shattering moments of my life, because it was supposed to be the light at the end of the tunnel. And then I got there at 23 years old, and I was so depressed and wanted out of that cube life. And so uh, thankfully in 2008, with the recession, I was laid off from that job, and I went on to travel. I had a lot of curiosity about travel in the world because I'm a Texas girl, born and raised, and I don't know a lot outside of Texas. At the time, I didn't.
Yeah.
So I had so much curiosity about what it would be like to be more of a global, more of a traveled and earth citizen of the earth, instead of just having this more narrow perspective. And that really opened me up a lot. And eventually also, as I got deeper into a yoga practice, which was my safe haven when I wasn't sure what my path was going to be moving forward, because um, like I said, I had prepared my life for that moment when I reached the professional. And so it felt like starting over, and also just not knowing how to do that. My yoga practice, the mat was, the one place that I felt like I was meant to be there. And also I started to receive guidance. I started opening up to some guidance there. Um, and it was about 2 years or so of exploration, of seeking, of, curiosity. And I had, at the very beginning of 2011, January 1st, in fact, of 2011, uh, an awakening, a sort of a rebirth. My, you know, rebirth. I believe we go through several in life, but that was the first one from since losing my child innocence. So it was huge for me. And immediately after that was when I personally awakened my sense of purpose and passion and power in a way that I had no idea existed. And and my life began to unfold in a way that wasn't so much me so much as that power driving it, the passion driving it, and the purpose driving it. Um, and at that time is when I started my community initiative in Austin, which is called Love ATX. And that's how I met you, through one of the weekend retreats that we did for the full moons, which I really appreciate how you described it, because that is all the intention that it's meant to be, a safe space for everyone to come fully just as they are, and feel welcomed, accepted, loved, nurtured, and seen and held. And just what that does for each and every one of our hearts and souls is um, powerful, no matter how it, for every person it could be different. So
Yes.
I could go on, but that was kind of like the breakthrough, was shifting from that sort of more typical path to a moment where I felt like I could see what the world, the future could be like. And I was determined to do everything that I could in my power, that I would, to help create that. And so I do that in through sort of like three different paths, three different ways.
Oh, well, please, like, describe them. I'm curious.
Yeah, so and over the years I've wondered, like, should I just do this, and should I just do that, and should I just do this? But I'm pretty clear now that it's a requirement for me to do all of them, and that they bring me fulfillment in each of their ways. And so one way, working with people individually as an empowerment coach, and I love to utilize mindfulness practices through that, uh, helping others to come really into their power. Um, and then there's the community work. So that's more like society and culture, and helping to shape and shift that. And then there's more earth focused work, just our helping us all to become more connected to the earth.
And I know that you are very connected to your roots, your native roots. And that has been a big part of your evolution and a big part of your work, because you were mentioning, that connection to Mother Nature. Um, was that something that was always there as a child because of your family, or did you get curious as an adult and then step into it?
Absolutely, from my childhood. I was very lucky to spend my first 5 years in a small town in South Texas. And before my parents separated, and so I was immersed in nature, and my father was really present with me, taking me out on walks and telling me about every little thing we would see. And also, I was always very self-sufficient in terms of entertainment as a child. I could spend hours outside just observing. And I feel like because I was in that sort of simple country living type of environment through those most formative years of my brain, that it feels like home to me from since I was a child. So, and I feel like to some degrees I disconnected with that through over my lifetime living in a city and just society. So it's been really nice through my mindfulness practices and acknowledging how much I absolutely need time with the earth, with the elements.
Yeah, it's there's, people should get really curious about this, but earthing and grounding, they've already proven there's all this scientific data that shows it's beneficial for us, our bodies. It's a way for us to restore, and all these awesome electrons go into our bloodstream and fight off free radicals. And it's like, that's why nature nurtures. It's really awesome. And you feel comforted in nature. And so it also, like you said, I love a couple of things that you touched on. One, I love that you're honoring and recognizing that your calling and part of your divine mission is these three facets. And a lot of times in our culture, especially when people are going into working for themselves and stuff, they're like, you really got to find that one niche. And it's like, yeah, but if I'm really interested and passionate and my heart's being pulled in all three areas, how can I do this? And I love that you really continue to like listen to your true self, yourself. I also too, it's really admirable that you went from that one job, right, where you ended up going into the engineering field, and because of a series of events, you losing your job, it ended up putting you in a position to sort of redirect. And in that moment, because I guess you ended up having your awakening and all this stuff was happening to you, you decided to kind of travel the path that was probably very scary to a lot of other people. How were you able to deal with other people's fears when you started going into this other direction and walked away from all of your education, that you had established at that point as an engineer? And I think it's so cool that you're also an engineer, because people see, and when I say this, you're such a flower child, this like awesome hippie girl, and people think, hippies, that they don't have these like awesome accolades and academics to back things up. And I love that you have the balance of the two. So let me go back to what I originally asked, if you remember what that was. and maybe, oh yeah, how did you overcome the fears that other people projected onto you when you were wanting to walk away from that?
I remember the force within me being so strong, like so clear that nothing could stop me from moving with what I was what was moving me.
Yeah.
And I was being affirmed by what what I now know as manifestation, but just the power of manifestation, of being so aligned with my heart and my purpose, that everything I was doing was showing me yes, yes, yes. And but it was very challenging. My whole friend group thought I was losing my mind and was judgmental, and I had to separate from that, which was very lonely. And my family, of course, I mean, to them, me getting an engineering degree and having an engineering job was just like, this is, it's almost like this generational thing where there's this pride, and to hold that up, and then for me to just like say no to that or let it go, and was, I think, like very clear in my actions that I wouldn't do that. There was this one moment when I had a job opportunity that was very what my past self would have wanted. My at least when I was in the engineering path, it was very much more what I wanted than what the job I had was. So I held on to it for a few days, and I remember after a couple of days, like when I finally told the person no, had this emotional release and was dealing with guilt because I couldn't believe that I had even questioned for 2 days if I would go back to that life. Because I knew that if I chose to, I wouldn't be honoring what I had to give in my life, and I would fall into patterns. Like I could convince myself, yeah, you'll have time, you can do your other stuff like after work and on the weekend. But I knew, like, to be real with myself, that wasn't going to be the case. So to me, that felt like a distinct moment. I even remember telling my mom and stepfather at dinner, um, that I had turned down a job, because for me it was like my statement to say, no, I'm not going back to that, and I am going to stay with my heart, and I'm going to figure this out. But it's terrifying because, parents are just like, well, what about insurance? And what about, it's all about like finances, and everything is so like security is lost. But for me, freedom and following my heart has held more value than security. So, and really like sticking to it over the years, like 3 years, 5 years later, it all starts coming around. And by now, my family loves and appreciates who I am and what I do. They embrace my gifts. And I mean, I feel a little emotional talking about it just because it was so hard when they didn't understand, and there was no words, there was no thing I could say to help them understand what I was going through and what I was becoming. But I didn't have to. Eventually, just by being, um, they fully get it, So,
Yeah.
and I feel the transmissions too that they receive in being with me, like allowing me to be who I am and accepting me as I am.
I went through a similar experience with my family too, because I had a corporate job and I was really young and making a lot of money and bought a house and was living the life. And then I had this crazy opportunity to move to Los Angeles. And I quit my job and sold my house and packed up my Explorer, which I think is so awesome. I had an Explorer because that's what we really are here to be, explorers, especially of ourselves. And so what ended up being, I thought would be like a 2-year thing in LA, I ended up being there for 12 years and learned a lot of things. And now all that production and creative stuff and radio and TV that I was doing, not for all the right reasons at first, because it was like talking about stories that didn't really matter. And then when I started awakening and started to find more of what was important to me, I wanted to use this big mouth of mine, to like then bring mindfulness to the world and stuff. So and it looks scary to a lot of people, like, what are you thinking? So I totally get it. And then also too, things coming full circle, 4 or 5 years into putting in that sweat and those tears and that work and that effort and really like fending off everybody else's projections onto what to be real for you, and they're like, it's never going to happen, and then finally everything that you've ever worked for and all these opportunities, and your heart is filled with joy. It's bliss. It's that whole idea of like, follow your bliss and watch what happens. Abundance will pour onto you and into you. Your passion, your power, and your purpose, they're also mixed together. What do you feel is like your main self-care practices that you do to make sure that you stay centered in them?
One of my most significant things, aside from being with nature, I think these two are equivalent, is being with myself. And there are different ways that I can be with myself. And there are at least two that I like to do regularly, like on a daily basis. Well, one would be like writing or speaking. The simplest is just writing, just being with myself and being with my thoughts and writing them out so that I have this like real sense that they're coming out. Because, for example, in meditation or in other cases where I'm being with it, but it might still be floating around, it's
Yeah.
like writing it really like moves it, and I can write myself through my own whole process. Other times it might be meditation. That really might just be what I need, because when I go to the pen, it's like not moving, and I'm needing more of like a spiritual, like energetic kind of movement. Um, so being with myself is, because when I'm not being with myself, I'm not going to be doing the things that I know I want to be doing, and then I'm punishing myself with negative self-talk. And so just being with myself is so important. And then equally being with the elements, like I said before, I
Yes.
feel that revival, that just the remembering, it's the remembering. And then it's my connection to God and source and great mystery. So in that way, it's sitting in the sunshine, feeling the wind, um, putting my hands in the dirt, like absolutely uh, putting my hands in the dirt, which is one of the greatest things I have to celebrate right now, is living on 5 acres as of about 5 months ago, and having gardens, and just having that plenty of space to put my hands in the dirt,
Yes.
like right outside, because sometimes it's hard living in certain places for me, like in developments or like smaller properties where there's no room for a garden or there's no trees or anything. So I'm really grateful that I'm in a space that I can do that right outside my door. And
You've designed your life and your lifestyle in a particular way that gives you the freedom and the liberty to do what you like and how you like and when you like. We mentioned earlier that you're an earth steward. Talk a little bit more about that, because I know you getting your hands in the dirt and you make, growing food and sustainability and all this is a big part of your work and your own life.
absolutely. It was a part of my awakening. It was also awakening to the importance of like not putting off like my care or how much, trash I'm producing or being how much of a consumer I'm being, and also like actually physically working with the earth. So I began studying something called permaculture, which is really a more modern like approach to indigenous practices in studying the earth and understanding the patterns and the relationships that help create a thriving ecosystem. It's like this puzzle that never ends. It's so exciting and mysterious and magical, and it also feels like art in the sense that, for me anyway, I don't approach art with so much planning or like uh, calculating. It's more of allowing, and something appears.
Yeah.
So I guess there are probably some inherent or intuitive understandings I have when I am working with the earth, but overall, it's like understanding the conditions that are required to help the earth thrive, for life to thrive, and then things just start to grow. And it's a beautiful experience because it reminds you how quickly things can change. It reminds you of the cycles of life and death, and also just being more connected to the process of like what it takes to create the food that sustains us. And beyond like maybe like an urban sustainability garden type of situation, I'm glad that I'm out here on some land that is actually doesn't have great soil. So it's a great challenge, because it's like if we can regenerate this soil, it's like a hard clay, into something that can grow and more things, I will be so happy. Like there are many places, there are many large pieces of land on this planet that need to be regenerated. So it's not always about growing food or growing something necessarily for our purposes, but just bringing life back to the earth because of how much destruction we've caused, and and then so we've taken life out of it. So it's something that is so exciting and enlivening, and it feels almost like it's a part of all of our purpose here at the moment.
Really,
So
really, we
for
should all look at ourselves as like stewards of Mother Nature, like protectors and caretakers of this beautiful planet, because we are part of the elements. Without the elements, we wouldn't exist. But you really do finally step into when you have an awakening, an awakening of realizing that life isn't just about you. There's a bigger picture that's going on. And just like you mentioned the word ecosystem, there's an ecosystem within the systems of the world, and an ecosystem happening to all of us. What I do impacts others. What I do to the water impacts all of the water. It's this idea, this bigger perspective of looking at life and ourselves and each other that hold accountability and responsibility. It's time for us to live from a place of integrity and put the word civil back into civilization, and look at Mother Nature as an organism of her own, you know, and she's alive and she's breathing and she has a heartbeat, and get curious like you did. If only everybody looked at nature and respected it the way you did, can you imagine what the world would be like? And I know
Yeah,
that you,
we can do it now.
yeah, right. It's like one person, you inspire someone else. Any last words that you would like to share with our viewers, and also
there
please
was
go ahead.
there was something coming up in what you were just expressing,
Oh, okay.
because there because the relationship to the earth part is definitely something that feels cumbersome. It feels like really big and hard to do anything about, and can cause like more of like guilt, like ugly feelings. So for many years, I have been more focused in the so it's like, how do I want to recruit people to care about or change their habits in a way that may seem inconvenient to care about the earth if they haven't found that way in their lives of caring for themselves first, right? So that's where my passion in working with people individually and also as groups, but for that personal growth is so foundational and important to get into loving the earth, because it's like if we're dealing with self-sabotage or self-deprecating kind of behaviors, like that's just a reflection of how we're treating the outside world. So um, it's always been kind of a challenge for me, because I've wanted to be all about like, let's just like plant seeds and do all these things, but then it's like when I really acknowledge the order of things is like, okay, let's love ourselves, let's heal ourselves, let's feel good about what we're doing for ourselves, and then we can feel good about maybe changing a habit that feels inconvenient. We feel good about doing that because we know of the impact that it's having, and we're being the change we want to see. We're being that leader, the embodied.
I
Mhm.
love it. You've been choosing to live deliberately, intentionally, and mindfully, and you've now seen the results of that in your life. And I think it's beautiful that you inspire and educate and empower other people on how to do the same thing, you know, for themselves, and then for those that have a desire to help people outside of themselves, you know, and in their community, you give them an opportunity to learn how to do that and give them ways to do that too, which I think is super fantastic. So thank you so much for mentioning that, because that was really important. People do feel a lot of shame and a lot of guilt and a lot of judgment, and that's something that we're all as a collective, you know, having to heal in a lot of different ways. So I really appreciate you for bringing that up. Is there anything else that you would like to share, and also let people know how they can connect with you, or if you have anything coming up that you want them to know about, feel free to share that.
Yeah. Well, something I'm really excited about is creating my first mindfulness courses. For me, I'm excited in how once one incorporates mindfulness and self-awareness, that is a path to accessing just that great power, um, and our power to create our experience, or I like to say co-create, because I don't like to be so um, you know, it's definitely a co-creation even when we're completely in our power, um, to be modest. But yes, so I'm really excited because I haven't created a course before, and I have taught a long time, but it's just I've been such an in-person kind of person, and thankfully, I don't know if I should say fully, but due to current circumstances, I finally sort of taking that leap, and it's something I want to do for a long time, because I want to be able to provide what I have to offer to more people than just who can show up at this yoga studio on this day at this time. So yeah, I decided to that mindfulness course, and Here in Austin area, we are establishing this space as a learning center and wellness space, me and my partner here. And so he's also, we are mirrors, and he is a yoga meditation teacher and a men's coach and also a permaculturist. So we're just excited to what degree we can have and build community here in this space, and just have more hands in on what we're doing here and regenerating this little piece of land, and also like allowing it to be space. So just keeping that sort of spiritual heart center and sustainable heart to in whole. So I'm mostly a Facebook dweller. My Facebook is my name, Jenna Jasso, or it's like / I am Jenna Jasso. And my Insta's like, everything's very straightforward on my website. My Insta and my Facebook is all my name. Very easy to find me. And yeah, I love connecting with people who feel drawn to work with me or learn from me. I'm excited to put out more content in general here. In fact, I was feeling inspired to, right after this, make a video and just walk up and down the road on the land here, so I can post it and tell people that in February we're inviting community to come and plant seeds. And there isn't any reason why there isn't a little something I can share about my life every day. Because as you said, yes, I have designed my life today, been a process, and I'm sort of like still resting into fully being present to like, wow, my life as it is, to everything that I've wished and so the pandemic has like created a little bit of shiftiness in terms of like where I feel like what I can and can't do. But I feel like, it's starting to come, and I feel like it's okay to have like small gatherings and just like, be careful about that. But can't live without community. That's it. I can't. So
Exactly. That's a big part of, I think, living a healthy, balanced, harmonious life is having a balance of that solitude, and that alone time with yourself. The way you said, I think it's so beautiful that you spend so much time with yourself and that you've gotten to know yourself as deeply and intimately as you have, and that you continue to honor that. But then community is a big part of it. We really do need others so that we can continue to thrive and live optimally. I also want to congratulate you because I know you recently released the beautiful news that you are going to have a baby with this awesome partner of yours that you are now with, and you're building this beautiful life, and now you're going to get to actually be a mama, and I think that that's so awesome.
I'm so excited. And yes, we live in a tiny home and it's fun. We love it. And he moved here from El Paso. And so I also want to add this, that we know that part of our work together, our purpose and our passion is part of what really brings us together, our hearts. And we're both Latina uh, community leaders who have a spiritual and sustainability practice. And so one of our really like deep passions that we're sort of finding, like, how can we impact more of the Latino community to bring more spiritual practices and sustainable practices and knowledge and understanding, because we acknowledge that there's a lack of diversity in these communities, and that really hurts my heart. And so that's sort of like a hurdle that I'm like determined to get over, because it's because if it was that easy, it wouldn't be the way it is, right? So it's like how to really meet people where they are, and use these tools to empower communities that are historically oppressed. So that's something I feel so much passion behind. It's sort of like where I am evolving as a leader. Yeah.
I love it. And I also love that you are coming out with a mindfulness program, because I'm all about mindfulness. And I know gratitude is a big something that you practice daily and is part of your power. Anything that you would like to say on gratitude before we wrap up this beautiful episode?
I feel like gratitude is directly connected to power in a way. And so yeah, resting in and meditating in um, what I have to be grateful for, I find is just like a dose of the best medicine I can have each day. And I noticed that my energy and my thoughts are shifted after I have like an intentional sit with gratitude. And it's just amazing how it transforms reality, literally, by going from a lens of lack or like worry or fear to all the goodness. And then it's just pure life. It's the essence of everything, of pure life.
Yes. You know, if you want your life to become more magical, you have to understand how to become the magic. You know, it's like how to own the magic that you actually are and allow that to shine. Thank you so much for all the beautiful work that you've done to help others. And I want to wish you continued success and blessings on all of your endeavors and your new baby and all the beautiful things that you're going to be birthing this coming year.
Thank you, Janie. I really appreciate it. I appreciate my chance to share just my heart's words that are true in the moment and my story. And I also appreciate you doing this show and sharing it with the world. I feel really inspired. I feel so connected to you as well. And I feel like you just read my soul.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm looking forward. I have a feeling in the future, because we're not too far from each other, San Antonio, Austin, we're doing some things. I really would love to go and check out your place and maybe plant some seeds and see how we can maybe do some collaboration, you know, in the coming years for sure.
Definitely. I feel that.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for tuning in to Rise Above TV, where we are empowering humanity and supporting unity. Your likes, shares, and follows are greatly appreciated because they help spread the love. Subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels for more mindful content. Tune in next week for another episode of P3, where we'll meet another individual who have tapped into their power, passion, and purpose. Till next time, peace be in us.